Now let's look at some special cases of t-tests that are used a little bit less often than our independent sample t-test. Now these are covered in chapter 13 of Pagano because mathematically they're a little simpler, even though they're not really what we use very often. So the first special case that we're going to use is it's called the match or the paired two-sample t-tests. That's where you have two data points for each unit of analysis. Now, what in the world does that mean? For example, suppose that you were going to measure some organizational citizenship behaviors. Those are OCBs. Those are basically how many good things people do at work that aren't in their job description. How often they help out with somebody, how often they bring coffee to share with the other workers, how often they'll sit around and be an encouragement to somebody who's down, someone who will help somebody else out with their other job responsibility, and they're called organizational citizenship behaviors because they don't get any direct reward from it. They just do it because it's good to do and it helps other people out. Suppose we want to measure the OCBs before and after a move to a new office. We want to find out if the new move, which leads to larger offices, but they're spread out more, leads to more or fewer OCBs. That would be an example. So what we would do is we'd get a sample of people and we could measure their OCBs beforehand, and then after the move, after things stabilized out a couple months, we could measure their OCBs again to see if they changed. Another example where we'd have a paired two-sample t-test is if we would like to measure the marital satisfaction of husbands and wives in some specific context. Suppose you were a pastor of a church and you wanted to know who's doing better in marriage, husbands or wives? Who should I focus on in the messages that I give? Well, husbands and wives are matched up with each other, and people that are in happy marriages, both of them tend to have scores that go up or scores that goes down. So we can see differences when groups are matched if we keep the husbands and wives matched together to see if there's a difference in husbands and wives scores. Another example would be organizational justice. Organizational justice is the perception of how fair an organization is. And that turns out to have all kinds of effects on workers. It motivates them to work harder, they stay longer at the company, they have better health outcomes. It's incredible how much this idea of being treated fairly will affect people. So, and the way that we measure organizational justice is we ask people things like, how fair do you think this organization is? And we could see if the organizational justice changes before or after a major change. Perhaps one division will get moved to another nearby town, and they're wondering how that might affect organizational justice. Well, we could take a sample of people before the change, and then we could measure their sense of justice after the change. And that would be an example of matched pairs or paired two-sample t-tests again. So now in the example that we're going to use OCB ratings made by a supervisor before and after a move to a new location. We're going to ask the supervisor, how characteristic of this is it of this employee to help others who are in need? So just a real simple measure, not super accurate, but we're going to see if supervisors' perceptions of their employees and how much they're helping each other change after a move. So we're going to use the paired samples t-test data, and we're going to use the data analysis t-test paired two sample for means. So this is what we will measure in the next video in Excel.